Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
So looking around, I'm really happy to see David Axel, because I know David from a long time ago at Spirit Rock.
Doesn't seem so long.
Many lives ago. And Dean Bellerby, who asked me to be here, isn't here. So I was looking around to see if I knew anybody else, but I don't think I do, unless I do. And then by the end of this morning, I'll know everyone. So my name is Bonnie O'Brien Jonsson, and I'm really happy to be here. Really grateful for no traffic on Sunday. I left my house at about 9:15. I live in the East Bay, driving down the freeway. It's like, forgot the directions, forgot the address. Turn around, went back home, because I found the sheet from Dean, realized I don't know where this is, got my MapQuest, drove, took the wrong exit, wound up down south. Anyway, turned around, and I got here about 2 minutes after you started, I think, so not too bad. Dean asked me to come because he's in a group that I lead called A Year to Live group. He thought it might be interesting to talk about a couple of the things that I do, which are leading A Year to Live groups and what that means. And I also teach mindfulness-based stress reduction through UCSF's Osher Center for Integrative Medicine. So I thought, okay, combining the two, which is complete Buddha Dharma, some with language that sounds familiar and some with very secular language, so that everybody can hear and understand the truth of what the Buddha's taught. So I thought, well, maybe I'll call this Living in the Body, because in the Osher Center in mindfulness-based stress reduction, we start with the body. We start with the body in a body scan. And dying in life. So the title of this morning's talk is Living in a Body, Dying in Life, to really look at both the amazing gift of being present in a human form and the truth of the fact that we're all going to die. The very deep truth of impermanence, the primary cause of clinging that the Buddha talked about. So I found this title, thought of this title because of James Joyce, who wrote and talked about Mr. Duffy. He said, Mr. Duffy lived a short distance from his body. I like that. I've spent many years living a short distance from my body, which is why I started to meditate. And why I lead A Year to Live groups. I often wonder why and how people get into the work that they do. And I'm not always sure, but for others, and I'm not really sure for me, but I kind of think that my father being missing in action in Korea when I was 2.5 and was a real deep trauma for me that stayed in the body for many, many years and probably still hanging around there somewhat. And the fact that he was missing in action without ever being really dead for all we knew, his presence really loomed large. There was death in our household, but we never knew it and we never talked about it. One big, strong reminder of our father, my sister and my father, was the oil painting that hung in our living room. Big oil painting of our father from here up. And it was one of those paintings that had eyes that followed you whenever you moved. So, in fact, our father's presence was very strong. And we never ever talked about him. The one time my sister and I wrote and talked about him that I really remember. I think I was about 6. And my sister was a year and a half older. We wrote a letter. We both wrote a note. Dear God and Daddy. And put them on the attic stairs because we figured that was closest to heaven. So that if Daddy didn't see, God would. And the notes really said, please come home. Please come home. We really miss you. And they disappeared. So we were really sure that they were found. And then my sister was a really good snoop. She found the notes in my mother's jewelry box. And my mother obviously had found them, but never mentioned them to us. So we really took it as a very strong message to not go there. Don't ask, don't ask. Don't ask, don't ask. I wound up being a respiratory therapist, and really say wound up being. I was a respiratory therapist for 16 years at what used to be Children's Hospital, which is now CPMC. And I've been with a lot of people who've died. I was there in the beginning of the AIDS epidemic before anyone knew what it was, just like what is going on here. And worked and lived through that, and I'm sure many of you have lived through that, especially living here in San Francisco. And I've been with many people who've died in a hospital setting without often a lot of consciousness around it, for lack of another word. And with a lot of medical intervention of doing everything to keep the body going. I was with my mother who died a few years ago, 5 years ago, and I'm going to end this talk in talking about my mother's cremation, which was very powerful, letting go for me in many ways. The Buddha said, in regards to living life in the body, I tell you, friend, that it isn't possible by traveling to know or see or reach a far end of the cosmos where one doesn't take birth, age, die, pass away, or reappear. But at the same time, I tell you that there is no making an end of suffering and stress without reaching the end of the cosmos. Yet it is just within this fathom-long body, with its perception and intellect, that I declare that there is the cosmos, the origination of the cosmos, the cessation of the cosmos, and the path of practice leading to the cessation of the cosmos. We have everything we need to wake up right here in the body. The Buddha said that the whole world could disappear, and we have everything we need to wake up right within this fathom-long body. So now we know how long a fathom is. We didn't know before. A few inches varying, but a fathom. So in starting the exploration of mindfulness, through mindfulness-based stress reduction, we start with a body scan. We start with paying attention to the sensations in the toes of the left foot and moving through the body mindfully while noting and noticing physical sensations and changes and that crazy mind that goes here, there, and everywhere. Much like sitting meditation, noticing is the building and the built muscle of mindfulness. Noticing, noting, letting go, coming back. The practice is all here in the body. The Satipatthana Sutta the foundations of mindfulness. The primary teaching of the Buddha on mindfulness starts with the body. Right there, the first foundation of mindfulness. And in the 5 aggregates are heaps of things that we are. This kind of putting together of heaps and things through clinging. First one is body, form. I'd like to read a poem by Rumi. Anybody get to see Rumi? Rumi, boy, if we could see Rumi. Helpful in this time. Coleman Barks reading Rumi. Anyone? A couple of weeks ago. It's really quite beautiful. Rumi wrote a poem, and this is the theme poem for the MBSR, Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction classes I teach, called The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows, who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door, laughing, and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. The first instructions in mindfulness of the body is to pay attention to breathing. So let the body be breathed. For me, my relationship with breath has been a strong relationship all my life, that since I can remember has been, until the last few years, really troubled, really hard to be someone who meditates and has for many years and have a struggle with the breath. Being a respiratory therapist, how I wound up in that, who knows? But there it is. As a kid, I was tested for asthma and didn't show up. I felt like I couldn't catch my breath, couldn't get a deep breath. I was never really breathless. I never really had asthma, didn't show up. I felt like if I couldn't wiggle my toes in shoes, I couldn't take breath. Very odd. But there was something that was really deep inside in relationship to this not being able to catch my breath. I can't catch my breath. I feel like I just couldn't get that little extra. If any of you have known that, it's really quite a challenge. About 4 years ago, I heard some teachings by Tanjef, a wonderful Theravadan monk who really talks a lot about the breath and talked about full body breathing. It was the first time I felt like I just didn't have to worry about it in a way. As a respiratory therapist, I was the director of a pediatric asthma center, and taught kids about the relationship between stress, also known as suffering, also known as dukkha, and the breath, and how linked this stress or dukkha is with the breath. And I never kind of put it together in my own practice until I started just being aware of the fact that the body can just breathe itself, and that the pores of the body, actually the skin breathes too. And a friend of mine on this talking retreat said, you might, look at the fear. Maybe there's fear in the breath. Fear in the breath. Wow. So I started paying attention to fear when I sat decided, okay, I'm going to have breath be the primary anchor. And there I'd sit, a little bit more, and I started to notice that I wasn't short of breath, that I was afraid, that there was fear. And every time I was afraid, there was the clinging to and the not being able to catch my breath. When in fact it was just fear arising. And over a period of a few months, I can honestly say I had the courage to sit with the fear, and it went away. You know, this practice of sitting with what is, sitting, being a guest house, the more we sit with what is, the more we, as the Buddha said when he was sitting, the night of his enlightenment. First of all, I have the right to sit here. I have a right, the earth is my witness, to wake up. And I see you, Mara. I see you, Mara, which is only, I see you, fear. I see you, every guest, everything that comes in and through the body. It can go through the body, but we stick it. Just like any of you grew up with the game Mumbly Pig. Mumbly Pig was a game I played on the East Coast where you get a little switch knife, sat in a circle with kids, and whoever got the most points won. You'd put the knife on any pointy place, elbows were good, and stick it. And if it stuck into the ground, you got the point. That's how we cling. We stick it. I stuck. I am afraid. And once is I see you, Mara. So many times of sitting really with courage. Courage is only being with what's hard. No thing else. It just went away, and then the body could be breathed enough that I could go a few months later on a 6-week retreat and spend the first 3 weeks just being present with the breath, which is like, I could do what? I could do what? Without any fear coming up. All with staying with what's right here in this body of fear, this body of hurt. And what I opened up to on that retreat was really 2 major things. One, by practicing and being so close with the body of the breath, the Buddha called it the body of the breath, I actually fell in love with the breath. As weird as it sounds, I fell not only deeply in love, I felt passionately in love with the breath. Physically, actually, sensually, actually sexually, in love with the breath, to the point where I couldn't wait to get up in the morning to be with the breath. It's like, breath. And that, if any of you remember the song, when I first fell in love with the breath, once I had a secret love. That kept going through my mind. I just really wanted everyone to know. I want to write home. It's like, I fell in love, I'm in love. And then, of course, it left. Then I had to deal with the, okay, it's gone. And then walking one day out in the woods in Massachusetts, I was in love again with the breath. I could feel it so deeply. It's like any time you pay attention with strong intention, the concentration that develops is so luxurious that this in-loveness can happen. And I was like, here, right here, this little spot, right between the nostrils and the lip, I was in love with this breath, because that's where I could feel it. So it's like breathing in, breathing out. It's like, oh, the essence of breath, the essence of body, the full body of breath. And it's like, can almost it's almost here. It's like over and over and over again. It's like all of a sudden everything opened up to this real huge deep understanding of there's no such thing as breath. There's nothing I can touch that's breath. It's a watercolor like everything else a body is. It's all and everything mind is. It's all coming and going. It's just a wash. Can't touch breath because there's nothing to touch. It's just going all the time. When this understanding comes, the heart is just so open and compassion for all these moments that we all cling to nothing, to no thing, to no thing. The second half of this retreat was open vipassana, open awareness of seeing the coming and goings of things. And towards the end of this retreat, there was this period where the movement of life and the stillness, that's the still point, here, now, always, came together. And there was just pure love, just love, not for the breath, but for everything, and not for, it was more of being love, an embodiment of love, which I'd come to see many years before without access to it again. And this understanding of like, here, all there is love. The Beatles were right. All there is love. All there is love. And I kind of made this vow on the spot that I didn't know was a vow. I said, I'm going to do anything to be love. I'll do anything. Actually not realizing at the time that there's nothing to do and nothing to clear, which came later. And in that moment I said, I will do anything to be love. Like this. The deepest grief I've ever experienced in my life came. Deepest grief over this loss when I was 2 of my father. And it came and it knocked me over for days, just days. And I would come back into it over and over again and just really practice a lot with walking, just to have some space with metta, may I be safe. It was so overwhelming, and for those of us who know grief to that degree, it is humbling. It's a weird word, but there's nothing left and nothing other than the grief. And the understandings, the insights that came of those days of grief were big. I saw how that original grief in my life had influenced and actually made happen karmically because of this. It's going to use, well, I will. Every fucked up relationship I ever had in my life, every time I compromised myself, it was related to this deep grief I'd never experienced, never actually knew was there. One time I remember saying to my husband, I have 2 kids and he's not their father, but I remember saying to him, it's like, fathers? I think fathers are redundant. Because my mother, I thought had been both mother and father. I didn't know. This retreat, this grief showed me how hurt and how much pain there was. And I came to the point where I actually said, which caused more grief, I actually said, I'm grateful this happened. Which still makes me so sad. I'm actually grateful this happened because it led me to the Dharma. This place of suffering led me to try to find out what it's all about, this life, and how to be free. A lot of healing came from that. A a lot of healing. This being human is a guest house who knows what we're going to get and maybe clearing us out. This felt like a clear out. It may be knocking out all your furniture. It's like, whew, nothing left here. And it was a huge teaching. It actually followed my mother's death. And it actually was this was only 3 years ago. 6 years or almost, it was 3.5 years ago, and it was about 6 years since I started leading A Year to Live groups. You know how we teach what we need to learn? How we do the work we do? Why? I needed to learn about grief. And the vehicle of living with death as a guide, without calling death to us in any way, is, it's called A Year to Live. Wake up, be alive. And we look at dying and death. And I hadn't really, looked at the grief of all that. In my own life, the original grief, though I had in the death of my mother. I want to read something, another incredible poem that I love called The Dakini Speaks. My friends, let's grow up. Let's stop pretending we don't know the deal here. Or, if we truly haven't noticed, let's wake up and notice. Look, everything that can be lost will be lost. It's simple. How could we have missed it for so long? Let's grieve our losses fully like ripe human beings, but please, let's not be so shocked by them. Let's not act so betrayed as though life had broken her secret promise to us. Impermanence is life's only promise to us, and she keeps it with ruthless impeccability. To a child she seems cruel, but she's only wild, and her compassion exquisitely precise, brilliantly penetrating, luminous with truth. She strips away the unreal to show us the real. This is the true ride. Let's give ourselves to it. Let's stop making deals for a safe passage. There isn't one anyway, and the cost is too high. We are not children anymore. The true human adult gives everything but what cannot be lost. Let's dance the wild dance of no hope.
Who wrote that?
Jennifer Wellwood. I love this poem. But let's dance the wild dance of no hope. Doesn't mean that things might be a little easier sometime in the future. It just means the future's not here now. That hope keeps us locked in future. I heard another interesting thing recently. It was a definition actually on forgiveness, but it relates to hope. The definition is forgiveness is giving up all hope of a better past. The wild dance of no hope is right here, right now, and it's the only time. It's what cannot be lost. It cannot be lost. It's right here, right now, and it is this wild dance of aliveness, no matter what we have no matter what we hold, no matter who we are. It's this aliveness right now. I've really been interested in this wild dance for a long time because I dance. I dance the 5 rhythms, the work of Gabrielle Raw, which is a wonderful dance. It's the 5 rhythms of life are flowing, and each of us have different ways we relate to this. This is a very in-the-body dance. Of course, all dance is. But it really, we all have different rhythms of life. And so some will resonate, which is very physical. That's why the bell is so physical. The resonance with the bell, the vibrations of the wave of change. This dance is really the waves of life. It starts out with flowing movements. Really the flow of life, really being in tune. And all life is flow and contraction. Flow and contraction. If we lived in harmony with the flow, the expansion that's in our lives, or the contraction without trying to make it other than it is, we'd be free. Doesn't mean it's not hard, but those moments of contraction that we so wish were open, it's not what is. So the flow is flowing with what is, leads into staccato, which is exhalation. It's in the world, in your face kind of energy, which some of us know quite well. Movements like this, wild kind of dancing. And then that goes into chaos, which some of us know really well. This is where I'm really happy. I'm real happy in this kind of like real let go chaos of life that scientists have actually found that there's order in chaos, cause and effect, all ordered. And then that moves over and up over the hill into lyrical, the skipping. You know, some of us kind of skip in life. We've known people, if it's not us, who are just that joyful kind of being in life. That moves into stillness. Moving into stillness, the rhythms of life. So this wild dance, it's really like being in that kind of a dance of life. We're in different phases at different times of our lives. In life, we all leave our marks of life. In life, we all leave our marks. Everyone, no matter how much we fight it or how much we go with it. And some of us leave skid marks. No. No. I found this wonderful book called Markings. Any of you ever read Markings? Yeah. Dag Hammarskjöld, the first Secretary General of the UN. Quite a guy. In this, he wrote, I don't know who or what put the question. I don't know when it was put. I don't even remember answering. But at some moment, I did answer yes to someone or something. And from that hour, I was certain that existence is meaningful and that therefore my life in self-surrender had a goal. From that moment, I have known what it means not to look back and to take no thought for the morrow. That said, many of us do look back, and that looking back is also a place we can practice with. Many of us have had loss that's still, in the gut, in the belly, in the muscles, in the heart. And being with that is saying yes in this wild dance. in the Year to Live group a few years ago. I've led, I'm about to start the 48th and 49th Year to Live group, which is like an amazing thing. I don't know, maybe David was at Spirit Rock one morning 9+ years ago, and I said, I really want to, I read this book, A Year to Live by Stephen Levine, and I really want to live this. Anybody want to do this with me? And the first group formed. And with much gratitude, all these groups keep being born, living and dying, being born, living and dying. And a few years ago, my sister and brother-in-law came up once a month from Santa Barbara to be in a group. And that same year, on my mother's 79th birthday in March, I started sending her once a month the readings that we read as she read the book A Year to Live. And toward the end of that year, my mother had a chest x-ray for a little surgery that showed a spot in her lungs. And my mother was a lifelong smoker. I was like, okay. And probably unwisely had another surgery very close to the first one that she just couldn't survive. Her lungs were not in any shape to have surgery at 79. And in fact, the surgery was a success, but for 2.5 years she went through hell and lived in a care facility, a hospital, in and out, went through a horrible dying process, wanted to die, said she wanted to die. Sometimes it was really hard to sit with her, as she said, won't someone hit me over the head with a hammer? I mean, sitting with your mother saying, I want to leave the hospital so I can go out and buy plant food and poison myself was like, okay. Sitting with everything she was saying. And so hospice was called in. Wonderful people and wonderful gift. They came into her, said, and I talked to her. She was ready, wanted to die. When they came in, my mother was in Santa Barbara. I get the phone call. Your mother's refused hospice. Like, what? Yeah, she said she has 5 years to live. It's like, what? The doctor had said that she would have 5 years to live if she had this surgery. My mother never understood the results of her actions. The fact that she couldn't physically do physical therapy meant that she wasn't ever going to get well, and that fact, all her finances, everything ended right there. She didn't know that she had any effect in the world and in her own health. She didn't know that she was dying, in fact. It was actually quite a shock. It's like, wow, I thought we'd talked about that. And then she did take hospice. Then she did decide to go home to either get better or die. On her 80th birthday, she went home. And that night got into a lot of distress, called my sister she had a home health. I have to go to the hospital. I have to go to the hospital. My sister said, Mommy, do you want to start that all over again? You didn't want that. That's why you wanted hospice. And the next day, my sister went there and read her the hospice instructions that said, if you stop eating and you stop drinking, you will die soon. And she stopped eating and she stopped drinking. And she started letting go. And it was amazing how she let go. The 2.5 months she was in the hospital, one big issue for her was the fact that she was constipated. She let go. She let go, she let go, she let go. And at the end of the week, we were told she wouldn't make it through the weekend. I came back down. I left on a Monday, came back on a Friday, and spent the weekend with her, luckily, gratefully, while she died, and was with her when she died. very easy. I say her dying was hell, but of course I wasn't her. And her death was beautiful. She had everyone there, which for my mother could have been a nightmare. She was such a quiet person, but there seemed to be, who knows, a lot of ease. A week later, after the memorial for her, my sister and brother-in-law and I went to the mortuary. We had told them that we wanted to be there for the cremation. And it was around the time where there was mixing of bodies, parts, and a lot of concern. And they thought we were there to check up on them. And we weren't, in fact. We were there to be there while this happened. I wrapped myself in my meditation shawl that I had purposely put on my mother when she was dying, and lay there, watched the chamber. The mortician was wonderful, told us exactly what to expect. Watched the body, the cardboard box, simple. If there's a casket, the whole thing gets burnt. Simple box. Heard of the initial blast of the furnace, cried, and after a little bit I was getting sleepy and I lay down in the shawl. My sister and brother-in-law went to another room and I kind of dozed in and out in the next 2.5, 3 hours during the cremation. And then the mortician came back in and said, I have to open the chamber door. Do you want to stay? It's like, okay. And he opened the door and I saw the most amazing sight I've ever seen. I mean, that I can even imagine seeing, which was my mother's skeleton intact, ablaze, just completely big, huge flames. I was just really amazed, shocked. I kept saying, it's amazing. It's just amazing. And he said, okay, we can turn down the fire. And did. I got my brother-in-law and sister, came back in, and he opened the chamber again after it had cooled down. Just a few flames coming from the pelvis, which is the largest bone, and some from the skull, which had turned in the blast. And when we looked closely, we had put a ceramic heart on my mother's heart that my daughter had left when she left, before my mother died, when she left to come back up north. And the heart was lying next to the body, right next to the head, turned towards it, and it was broken in half. Mm-hmm. And we watched the mortician take this huge, 8-foot long broom with this head, and in one swoop, the whole left side of the body just disintegrated, and there was a receptacle in the front, and he put all that in, and then the other side was just moved into this receptacle, and then he used these huge heat retardant gloves to pick up the remaining bone fragments that had fallen in the door. And we went to an area outside, and the ashes at that point are very bony and thick, not ashes completely. And he took all the staples from the box out. He took my mother's teeth bridges out, and my sister and I both took a vertebra to take home. And we went into the finishing room, which is where my mother's body had been in a cooler, 6 bodies. We found out this is where the body had been, not she, the body had been. We were put on gowns and masks, and because of the ashes, this fellow told us what to expect, took a vacuum that was laden with ashes, covered with other people's ashes, turned on the blender after putting the bones in, and grind up the bone into small ashes, while ash is going out into the air. And like this behind the mask. My sister is going on the cupboards, and my sister took her hand. My mother's name was Margaret O'Brien, Maggie. And my sister used her finger to write Maggie, and my mother's ashes on the cabinet. And I'm going, it's just amazing. And then he afterwards, put the ashes in a box, in a velvet pouch. We went back to my sister's, put a Buddha cloth over it, and after some hours went to my sister and I, wrapped in the shawl, to where my mother had lived for many years, and walked the walk in Santa Barbara along the beach to the harbor. And the same walk my mother had walked for years, spreading her ashes everywhere, and went to the bird refuge in Santa Barbara where she'd spent many hours with her grandkids, and never put any ashes near the water. My mother did not want to have any ashes go near water. It's like I don't know what it was. So never near water. And the ashes flew all over us, got all over the shawl, and it was like silk. Just if you've ever touched it takes all the oils out of your hands, and it's just like silk. And what kept going through my mind was the words of the song, Dust in the Wind. All we are is dust in the wind. Living in a body, dying in a body, dying in life. Full circle.
Swami, will you be available for questions after?
Yeah. So, in closing.
We need to do a couple of things before we actually close.
So, in closing for me, just a lot of gratitude to have witnessed something that was healing, and taught me that not only was it important to do, it taught me that I can look at anything and how important that is, whether it's grief or love.
Do we have a host today?
That would be me. Today the third Sunday? Fourth Sunday. Today's the fourth?
Should be lots of food today.
Anyway.
It is. Today's the 22nd. It's the fourth Sunday.
Yeah. April 1st was a Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So, stick around. Enjoy the fellowship of the song. If you there are tea and cookies and whatnot. So if you have some tea, please. Heloise would say, wash your cup. And some people will go out for lunch probably afterwards. So I will try to connect you with those people if you're interested in doing that. There's a dawn bowl. We request, or we offer that you make whatever donation you can to meet healthy, stronger needs expenses. And I guess donations from $5 to $8 are gratefully accepted, and whatever you can afford is gratefully accepted. I think that's it for me.
Any announcements?
G'day, I'm CJ and I'm the potluck coordinator. Last week we had a potluck, about 18 people, over a course of 3 hours sort of. And anybody who wants to open their home to a potluck dinner for GBF, just find me after the gig.
Jim, this is a little personal, which is that Jim's going to be... No, well, this isn't that part of it. Jim is going to be performing this afternoon at 4 o'clock in a Bach mass. B minor. And I'm going to go. So if anybody else is going to go and wants a ride, I'll be glad to offer a ride from here, wherever they are, to there, which is going to go to the private city.
Thank you. 5-star review of it. I saw it last night. It was amazing.
Not a soloist. Next Sunday, our landlords need the space, so we're not meeting next Sunday. You might want to experiment with the astral plane and meditate at 10:30 to see if you're not together on a higher dimension. And Darren is going to tell us about the speaker on the next.
Right, so May 6th, it will be Jorge Ferrer. He is a faculty member at California Institute of Venerable Studies, my alma mater, CIIS. Where he's a professor in East-West psychology. He was formerly a member of the planning committee of the Buddhist Peace Fellowship, the Buddhist Alliance for Social Engagement. And he will talk about an article he wrote called Beyond Monogamy and Polyamory, Extending Sympathetic Joy to Intimate Relationships. That should be of interest to some people. Maybe you know who you are. Also, there's a meditation group that meets at my house on Tuesday nights from 7:30 to 8:30. We do meditation generally, so if anybody's interested in attending, just let me know.
On Cinco de Mayo, that's Saturday, May 5th, there's a picnic planned in the Botanical Garden, Houston Botanical Garden, noon to probably 2:30. It's hosted, just show up. There's a $5 garden admission, but we hope to see you. We'll be meditating for a short period of time under the trees and have a picnic, and then there'll be a docent tour of the garden. It's really nice. There is one issue in that in the newsletter we indicated that there would be a carpool from Bartlett Street here, and there has been some issue about that, and I'm looking for somebody who might want to provide that carpool. If you're interested and you're going to come over from the city, please see me.
First, I highly recommend it. The Botanical Garden is beautiful. Marvin's a great guy. Along the lines of outings, we were rained out from the Point Reyes annual wildflower hunt, so we're kind of doing an impromptu one this coming Saturday. So going to try again if the weather prevails. So we're going to meet at 9 o'clock here. Anybody who's interested, and see if we can get a carpool out there. Also, just one more for the Cinco de Mayo. For 2 Sundays from now, there will be no parking unless you get here really early, like 2 in the morning. So I would encourage people who come here on Cinco de Mayo. I think the parade's on Sunday, isn't it? To if at all possible, take public transportation. Just one other thing. Maybe before we go, can people for the first time identify themselves so we can say hi and approach them?
Yeah, I'm sorry we didn't go around and say our names today like we usually do because I was out of the room, but we would like to acknowledge people that are visiting or are here for the first time. Would you raise your hand? Francisco, yeah. Anybody else? I also have one announcement. This is the last day to do any kind of changing or updating on the GDF directory. If you want to be on it, it's up there. Find it down the bowl. Please make any changes legibly. And the next meeting we have, the 1st of May, I'll have the new directories available. Any other announcements before we close?
Gratitude. gratitude for being together. May the merit from today's practice give benefit to all beings everywhere without exception. May all beings find peace in their heart. May all beings wake up. Feeling the connection of the person's hand to your right and to your left. Little squeeze. And the joy in the Sangha. This connection here, may all beings feel the same loving connection and great gratitude. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.